So,
When did you roll?
first of all, just what did the process look like in finding your creative identity? And do you think it's already complete, or do you think it's still growing?
Still going, still going. I think I've fiddled with multiple. Um, well, I think no, I think it's a process. I think you kind of hit certain milestones over time. Uh, yeah, I think it takes time for the entire identity, the sort of I call it the ethos, for the ethos to fully develop. I think aspects of the ethos have come over time, but I also think that especially for what I do in the visual arts field, you have to be you have to have a large name in order for you to involve your ethos in collaborative projects. So, if I'm working on a project, for example, Joyful Noise is just one aspect. I do like some interior design work and different like design pieces, sculpture and things of that nature for a Christian event that occurs every month. And it has an ethos. So it has its own ethos, So for
Yeah,
it, the thing, so when I come into it, I have my approach and my design process, my creative process. But if I want to involve my ethos, which would be a very innovative move, you have to have a certain name or you have to be at a certain level of sort of how people perceive you in order for them to be open to that idea.
yeah, for sure.
Um, so for what I do in the visual arts field, it's the ethos has to be able to be catered to any other person since so much of my work is collaborative. And in that sense, currently with my personal work and my personal art, I would say one aspect of it is like unsettling truth. It tends to be very propaganda like. It communicates a message in an edgy way. Some of my pieces do. Um, Now that level of edginess might not be what somebody is wanting.
Yeah,
But how I came to appreciate unsettling truth is reflecting on what I'm interested in. So I write down often whenever I hear words that I like, I'll write it down. So like somebody
that's
would say
sick.
like mental hospital, I'll write it down. I
Uh-huh.
like I like mental hospitals. I
Uh-huh.
love like the distortion of like human psychology. Obviously, it's not a beautiful thing, but it is something I'm interested in because it provokes thought about human life. Or I just wrote down the word blueprint the other day. I love the idea of like architectural blueprints. I think it's an intriguing uh thing to look at and it has a lot of correlation, like metaphorically, to so many other things. Somebody could make a brand called Blueprint and have so many design ideas, it'd be endless.
Yeah.
That's a whole ethos within itself. So,
Uh-huh.
and then there comes the thing of like choice. It's like you have so many options on the table. There are so many worlds to build. There are so many brands that are possible to be constructed. What's the one that really fits you?
Yeah.
And with me and my own work, I've only settled on unsettling truth, but then I love aesthetics. I did the
Hmm.
sophisticated Christians drop, which
That
is
was
like
my
this.
favorite like artwork that you did. I literally love that as
Is
soon
it
as I
like
saw
that?
that. Like the
Hey,
caption
I
too, like we're in a time where like Christian's gonna dominate the creative world. Like that was just so sick.
I appreciate that, bro. And that wasn't necessarily on brand because it was more just like aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
And it was still like a propaganda model, but it didn't necessarily wasn't
Have the edge, the
unsettling. It was actually
directness. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't super edgy. So I kind of like right now I'm at like two worlds. I have like just purely aesthetics, but obviously still Christian, still seeking to communicate a message, or at least everything is honoring God or is in accordance with the will of God. Um, so then within that, as like a subsection of that, I have like more edgy stuff, and then I have the just like aesthetically pleasing stuff. But I haven't
Yeah.
really developed the ethos fully. So when you ask how I found my Christian identity, I would say to go back on that tangent is just reflecting on what I'm interested in and trying to hone that in over time. And I think that's been the process. It's like a cone. Like I've been slowly narrowing down into a concise way of approaching the art, but I haven't gotten there fully.
So how does it look like even like with other art forms? Like you've like made some like beats and stuff and you direct videos. How does that how does like what you're interested in like that the ethos like incorporate into those things as well, more than just a visual aspect?
Yeah, so I don't make beats. I did. I obviously we've all made a beat. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying?
Because I
Like
saw
we've
that
all
there's
made
like
one.
some challenge thingy or whatever. You're
I
like,
did
yo,
that, yeah. And I knew I shouldn't have because I don't believe in being boxed in, but it can be a bit disorienting publicly when you just do too much. So
hmm
I consider myself a visual artist, so like I'll take everything visually, but I don't make beats like on like I
okay,
can.
okay.
So that's actually what I used to do when I was in the world. I got saved like a little over 3 years ago. I was making my living off of producing beforehand,
That's sick.
and I did visuals too, but mostly a lot of my money was just coming from production. So like I have that. I was doing that for years, so I'm capable of it. But in terms of everything visual though, because that's really all I can speak on. Like I
Uh-huh.
don't want to speak on the production because I just this is not my lane anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How did you get to that from producing?
So I've always been doing when I was 11. When I was little, I used to play the piano, I had a guitar, and I used to paint and I used to draw, right? I was always very like multidisciplinary, even as a child, and very like love to learn. Then my whole life kind of went left. But in the midst of like kind of the nonsense of like my teenage years and like early adult life, like when I was 11, I got my first laptop and I downloaded Unity. I started using Unity 3D and I started using Blender and I had like a cracked version of Photoshop. So even when I was little, I used to always be into the visuals, but what really got me into visuals overall was philosophy. So like I spent 2 years after becoming a believer at university studying philosophy, and I eventually dropped out because philosophers don't make money. But I uh I learned I got so intrigued into the history of art, and there's this correlation that occurs across history where art and the way that people think, you can track the way people think by the art that they made. And I really love that. I love the how the art that's created within a time period is a reflection of the way that those people think. Um, and really just in the study of symbolism and art, and like just there's so much to it, got me into the visual aspect and really storytelling, and like
Yeah.
world building got me into it for sure.
Yeah, storytelling is definitely a big thing. I'm definitely trying to work on that too, because like if one there's like a good story, it's so intriguing, and I want to be able to be at a point where I can make that and like have that for just like myself and like be able to do that myself. That's definitely very it's like very hard to do, but once it's done right, it's like it's beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Bro, it's so important because storytelling is in everything. Um, for example, I could say right now, I have something to tell you later, but I'm not, but like I can't tell you right now,
Uh-huh.
right? I've just established tension.
Yeah.
And now there's just suspense for the viewership because I have something, right? You don't know what it is. It could be anything. I could have a
Uh-huh.
bomb under my chair. I'm saying I could go in my closet. What if I just hung myself in my closet right over there? You know what I'm saying? Who knows what I'm about to
Yeah.
tell you? So
Yeah.
now we've established tension and it makes conversations more interesting. I could tell you, hey, church was really intense this Sunday. How would you respond?
Like what happened?
Bro, I like the whole time I had to pee and I didn't want to be the guy to get up. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So like I just held it the whole time.
Uh-huh.
But it's like so storytelling makes conversation, it makes communication. Every aspect of our life is a story. Like there's so many layers to because anything that revolves around a timeline is story based. You
Yeah.
know, and even not, even if you have a piece of painting, a still piece, you can still tell a story in one frame.
Yeah.
So I think it's important because it applies to every aspect of life.
How do you think you're able to incorporate storytelling into your visuals?
Um, yeah, so I think that's everything. Like the one piece. So it comes down to symbolism and how objects within the frame represent something. And all of my art tends to do that. So I would say the most edgy piece I've done, I actually put out like a week ago, and it's a character with a skull and horns, and he's leaning back, and in his hand he's holding a grenade. Below him is a character who I've used the same sophisticated Christian character with the cross eyes, the cross ears, and he's washing the person's feet. There's an element of contradiction and subversion that occurs there, right? Because the character is placed in a position of authority,
Mhm.
but we know that the non-believer does not have authority. So then it comes down to the interpretation is based on the perception. What's the lens you're looking at it through? Do we believe that this character with the horns and the skull has authority? Or that's why I incorporated the grenade because there's holding a grenade in the hand as a like an element of self-destruction.
Yeah,
So there becomes these contradictory elements. Like, okay, you have the believer washing the character's feet. We know that we're supposed to love our enemies, but it does it make sense to love someone in that position of presumably, depending on your interpretation, authority and power? And how does that settle within us?
yeah,
You know what I mean? So that's a story because I would say it's thought provoking because it has multiple interpretations, and I think it communicates a good message in regards to loving your enemies, but there's circumstances to that. You know what I'm saying? Does that character represent Satan or does that character represent the average non-believer? I didn't
yeah,
clarify that. You know what I'm saying? So it leaves a lot of room for thought, which I think establishes a story. And I think it's the most powerful story because it reflects on real life.
yeah,
So the substance of it is actually how you relate to it. Like it only has power because it's relatable. You know, and
yeah,
not there are stories that are unrelatable and can still have impact, but I think it's carried by the fact that this is something we deal with like in our day to day. So
yeah,
I would say it's like symbolism that deeply relates to our practical daily lives.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like where you're not giving the answer, like people have to find the answer out for themselves. So I think that's definitely powerful when it's not like this is what the story is, like here's pieces of it, and now you go and figure
Yeah.
out what it means for yourself. That
Bro,
definitely
a great resemblance to this is the Rocky Road 2 video.
uh-huh.
So the comment section, if any of y'all anybody watching or even you yourself, like if you go through the Rocky Road 2 comment section, it's literally like hundreds of comments, like debates over what the meaning of the video is. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
because now keep in mind, I did hold their hand a little bit because I thought it was a little too ambiguous. So I included some text elements and I included some Bible verses. And I
mhm,
was watching some reactions to it recently, and those text elements actually did make people literally click back through the video because they missed the
uh-huh,
part that was like substantial to understand it.
yeah,
But it created this like rewatchability. So not only is it thought provoking and all that good stuff, like in terms of impact, but it's also like extremely marketable to
yeah,
have a good story. You know, in terms of when we talk about product and branding, uh, if you have elements that make people look back, obviously you need power of perception because if it wasn't a Caleb video, then nobody's going to look back, right? Let's
uh-huh,
be
yeah,
real. So you got to be
yeah,
him to even
uh-huh,
make people want to go back. But when you combine those two together, like if you have the power of perception and a really good story, like it's great it's good for marketing, you know?
yeah. What do you think about the Montel Fish stuff? Because he's like gone super deep into the storytelling, like the
Oh my
whole
goodness.
he's made the whole like Charlotte's book, like making like different stories and stuff, and like just all the music. It was a huge switch, definitely from like what he's making before. But I honestly think that it's like I thought it was pretty cool everything he's going through, and there is some stuff I'm like maybe it was a little too much, but no, for the most part, I appreciate the like storytelling aspect of it, and I'm definitely interested to see like because I don't think that he'll explain it all the way
Yeah.
because like what you're saying is like there's the element of like interpreting it for yourself. So I
And there's so
definitely
much tension.
there's so much tension.
We want to see how this resolves.
Uh-huh.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah.
And
There's
it,
even
it keeps
like
us intrigued, man.
yeah, there's this he like posted something where it's like make an art piece to like of your interpretation of it and send it to me. So I like did one for him. I like sent it in, like emailed it or whatever, and he like saw it and they're like, "Oh, this is sick" or whatever. But that was just cool, like a way to incorporate. Like he was also getting it back too. Like he wasn't just like go do it. Like he wanted it back, so he was able to see what like the people around him, like the people that are viewing it, see it as too. So
Yeah.
I just think that's super. That's like that's really deep storytelling. That's like
Oh yeah. No,
going
Montel's a
all in,
genius. Yeah, he's
all
a
in.
genius. I'm super. I love his art. I love his approach. I love the way he thinks. He's a visionary.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like moral questions and spiritual walk. To set that aside, um, purely artistically, the guy's a genius
yeah.
for sure.
He's doing great from it too. He's blown up. Like I was just
Oh
looking at
yeah.
like his like Spotify monthly listeners and it was like crazy. Like I didn't even realize he was that big.
Oh
Like
yeah.
because I
Hotel,
was
bro.
listening
Hotel went crazy on TikTok.
Hotel went wild.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to it before, like before he dropped out of that, and then he dropped Jamie, and then I was like, oh, this is sick. Let's see where it'll go. But he had like after that, I was just like did not realize how big he actually got, which is crazy. Because he's also like it's not definitely stays more modest and like to himself about it. He's not like now that he's famous, he's like going out. It's like this still the same aesthetic like all the way through. He's like just doing like very few collaborations and stuff like that. He's just the one. I don't even know. I don't know who that guy was, but he did that song with the unicorn thing, like in the forest or
Yeah.
whatever, like a part of
I
that
love that
album.
song. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like one of his only collaborations he's done in these past
I
few
think
years.
and I think it was just whoever he was on the phone with in that song.
Yeah, the little clip in between.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's who was featured on it, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
I love the
But
mystique. Yeah, how he carries himself, that mystique element. It's not many people. The crazy part is he I don't think he ever had as much mystique as he has now. Obviously, I've only been listening to Montel for a very short amount of time, but I have friends who were previously close to him, and he seemed to be much more active in the past, like with YouTube and like the different YouTube videos he
yeah,
used to make. He was much more like it wasn't always as mystified as it is. But
exactly.
I love the mystified aspect from an artistic perspective. If you have the
Because it's intriguing.
it's intriguing. Not everybody can
Yeah,
do it though. You have to have the power of perception for people to even be interested. Because
yeah,
there are so many people who try to carry themselves with mystique, but they don't have public perception in their corner and nobody cares.
yeah,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Because
Yeah.
like to a point, like especially if you're just starting and no one knows who you are and what you're doing, and you're just trying to like reveal nothing about yourself, there's no one's gonna connect. Like
Exactly.
it's just like,
You
who's this dude with the mask on, bro? Like, what is he doing?
yeah. It
But he
happens all the
definitely,
time. You've seen it, right? It's the masks, like ski
yeah,
mask stuff, like
yeah,
and yeah, nobody cares unless yeah, um you have to be personable, man. You gotta be willing to make microwavable content in the beginning. You gotta be willing to
yeah.
show your face in regular situations. This happens to me all the time, bro. Like there's a lot of art that I make that I just don't put out there because I don't have an art studio. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? And because I feel like I can't properly produce it.
Yeah.
I can't not because there's a certain format I want to make stuff in. A lot of my physical stuff that I make, I would love to show the process of it and the process of developing it within an art studio, like the people I look up to. But
Hmm.
I'm just not capable of it. So, the smart thing to do is just, you know what, just work with what you got and put it out anyway. Because
Uh-huh.
anything you do, you should be sharing it.
Yeah.
But I think we create a line for ourselves of what we're willing to put out there and not, and that can be detrimental to our own success.
Yeah. So how do you go about like have you ever like in a real time situation you make an art piece and put it out there? Is that like hard? Is that have you ever done that as like hard for you to do, or is like do you think that's like where the like most genuine art comes from?
Wait, can you rephrase that?
Like like in a situation that you're currently in, like you're going through something and then you make an art piece for it. Do you think that's where like the most genuine art comes from, or is it like you're looking back onto something that happened in the past and you make something, or just like you find something interesting like that? Do you know what I mean?
It depends, bro. It depends. I'll say that I don't think my art is driven by my emotions. I say recently it has been a little bit just just women, bro. Women situation, bro. Just it influences the art. It influences
Uh-huh.
the art. It influences
Uh-huh.
the art sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna lie. But normally, on a regular day, my art is usually well thought out, and it's more logic driven than emotion driven.
Okay.
So they can sort of be almost they can feel empty of they're not warm. They're not warm. They don't feel emotional. Sometimes they feel more dead. Like there's a piece I have in black and white of it's a rotating reel and it's a bunch of characters with revolvers aiming at a character who's crouched down and he's holding a cross in his hand. Now that's true, right? We are,
Hmm.
Christians are persecuted. It's the reality of the situation. Is it emotional? I would say it has a transcendent value to it because the idea of death is an emotional thing.
Yeah.
But I think that it's not something I'm tapped into. I have a large history, especially as a non-believer in like the psychedelic world and doing a lot of psychedelics and sort of like feeling of death. Like I have heart problems, so I've been to the hospital thinking I was gonna die. So like the idea of death, I guess, does have an emotional influence on my art. But I wouldn't say it's that I'm feeling a certain way at a certain time and then I make a piece based on that. My pieces are usually based on ideas, not like how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so it's more like intellectual than it is emotional, I guess I would say.
So where do you like, because you're saying you just like get random ideas and stuff like every time you see a word, but where do you think most of the inspiration comes from?
I would say symbolism and philosophy, also innovation, trying to communicate something that hasn't been communicated before. So recently with the unsettling truth, I'll look for biblical truths that are not common, and sometimes I'll have to hold myself back. So I actually have an entire
Uh-huh.
animation that I haven't put out, and it's actually like the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Dang.
But it's like cinematically put together in such a way that's pretty brutal. Now that's true, right?
Yeah.
The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is legit and it honors God. It's in the word.
Hmm.
God poured his justice out on Sodom and Gomorrah. That's
Yeah.
edgy because it's edgy in our time, right? To
Yeah.
communicate the wrath of God. Let's talk, So that's where I'll get ideas from. I'm like, okay, what are people not talking about? What is unsettling? What's gonna make a certain amount of people a little distaste? Like there's gonna be an element of distaste.
Uh-huh.
And then based on that, I'll go into the word or I'll think to myself and I'll write it down. Other times, often, if I'm really out of ideas, which is really uncommon, I guess how I keep the generation of ideas is I'm always listening to books, so audio books, reading books. Recently, I'm pretty far through this. This is called the London Art Schools.
Okay.
Random book. I'm at Sam Flax buying graffiti and I saw this
Uh-huh.
and I've been going through it and it's all about
Uh-oh.
the
Wait. Oh, never
what's
mind.
up?
there's a 10-minute timer left on Zoom. We're just gonna end the meeting
Okay,
because
cool.
it's the free version.
This all good. This is about the London art schools. This is about how when we went from modern art to postmodern art, there became this entire question of how do you even teach art and what are the biases, and they started to deconstruct their curriculums
Hmm.
in London, and it was this whole big ordeal. So this is all about the deconstruction of art curriculums in Paris or in London. And reading that gives you a bunch of ideas. It's like
Yeah.
as you're reading it, you see how it relates to other things and you write it down. So I have a big list of ideas, but what's most important I think is ethos. Ethos is more important than ideas because when you find it's better to find ideas that relate to the ethos and that continue to consolidate your design language or your brand language than to just have ideas that are non-related,
Yeah.
because I feel like we should constantly be searching to hone in, not to box ourselves in, but to have a design language that correlates to every medium. And it's
Hmm.
really difficult, bro. It's really hard to do, honestly. It's like
Yeah.
the code I've been trying to crack. But that's an idea within itself. Like trying to
Yeah.
find your ethos, we can make a whole movie about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the drop, like that I'm doing in January. My idea right now, I've got 6 different music genres, and I'm going through like every one, and they all have different styles and stuff associated with it. So I'm gonna make clothes based off of them, and I'm also gonna make like a little like short film. Not really a film, it's just kind of like a montage of like what it is. And then the seventh one, I'm gonna have it like all come together. So that's gonna be like it's kind of like the journey of going through like all these different things and then finding your own thing. So that's definitely what I'm trying to incorporate too. Like I want to like make there be purpose for it. I don't want it to be just like here it is because that's what I've done before. It's just like I think this is cool. I'm gonna throw it out there, even if it has me attached to it. It was just random. So
Well, and
definitely
that's
trying to
what I'm
get.
on. That's what I'm on right now with my website. I don't know if you have you seen my website?
Yeah, I was on it. It looks sick.
Yeah. So a lot of the designs that are on there, I think, are really cool designs, and I like them. Like they do have some of them have that. There's two branches, it's like unsettling truth and just purely aesthetics.
Hmm.
But it's not the reason I went because I had perception control. Were you following me when I made perception control?
I'm not sure what is that?
So perception control was an ethos it was a brand and an ethos that was actually very strong, but I let go of it because it doesn't fit into every medium. So it
Okay.
was a brand I did, which I let go, and now I just do Elias because Elias is like my designs and different clothing designs that I like, but not necessarily ethos. It's just kind of just everything, right?
Hmm.
So it's not really a brand, but perception control, the ethos was this. I said Christian art is the most valuable art in the world, and um there were 6 points. I actually have it. It's actually my desktop screen. There were 6 points of perception control. That was the brand identity, and it was the idea of preservation. Say, okay, Christian art is the most valuable art in the world. What does it mean to be valuable? Things that are valuable are preserved. They're not able to be rusted. So I had different design concepts like the retouching of paintings, like the Mona Lisa and many famous paintings have been preserved.
Hmm.
Cars that are vintage they're preserved in such a way that they won't rust. Buildings
Yeah.
are preserved in such a way that they won't fall apart. So perception control, when you perceive something as valuable, that thing must be preserved. So preservation was an idea, and then eyes on it. So when you go to the Louvre in Paris, everybody's taking videos and pictures 24 as long as the museum is open. Somebody is in there with their camera on the Mona Lisa.
Uh-huh.
So when something is valuable, Christian art is the most valuable art in the world. It's preserved and everybody's looking at it, right? There's
Yeah.
eyes on it. The third is rarity. It not only is it preserved and not only are people looking at it, but it's a rare object. Four is the senses. You can only perceive something as valuable through your senses. So the five senses were like the different logos and like iconography. I wish I had the paper over here, but I had like 3 papers full of different logos. You know what I'm saying? I like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like 100 different logos. And then 6 is it points to Jesus. So Christian art, that's number 5. Christian art is the most valuable. So it's Christ centered. And then the sixth point was that it exposes value malleability. So I was making these different like commercials and animations that were showing how, okay, it's like I put a t-shirt out, and let's
uh-huh,
say the t-shirt, um, it's like created and then it's put into a frame. It's put into an art
yeah,
frame.
yeah,
So now it's like rare because an art frame communicates rarity.
uh-huh,
And then let's say in the animation, everybody's taking pictures of it. You know what I mean? So boom, now we have eyes on it and they're through their senses and things like that. It's Christian,
yeah,
but it's exposing value malleability because I'm showing you how these same 5 points I'm using to sort of control perception is what other brands are doing and what other people are doing. It's what governments do. It's what people have done
yeah,
across history to convince people that this is valuable. So
uh-huh,
it's sort of ironic. It's like it's called perception control and it's controlling your perception to believe that Christian art is valuable. But other
uh-huh,
people use this same method to convince you that their stuff is valuable.
yeah,
And that was the brand identity. And I let it go, but it
uh-huh.
kind of it still exists. Like the blueprint of it still exists.
That's dope though. I love that concept.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. But yeah, bro, I appreciate you bringing me on for this conversation.
Of course, bro.
It's dope talking creative identity, brand identity, art. That's what I'm here for, bro.
Yeah. I just love talking to people too, especially like because I'm in college right now, freshman in college.
Yeah.
So I just love being able to just like learn from people who've already made it like past like where I'm at right now. Like I'm looking up to like people like you and like just be able to like talk to you guys and see what see what's going on. So
Yeah, nah, it's dope, bro. I think it's good. I think we need more of this within the space too, because especially from a arts perspective, this type of dialogue is uncommon.
yeah,
So we got to do more of it. And that's why when you hit me up, I was like, I'm super down because I like this type of stuff.
yeah, for sure,
Plus,
bro.
it's free game, bro. Free game for the young Christians, man.
Uh-huh,
Young
exactly.
Christians, we gotta. Hopefully, they find this, man, for real.
Hopefully, bro. All right, sweet. Pleasure
All
talking to
right,
you.
fam. Yeah, you too,
See
bro.
ya.
God bless.
See ya, bro.